I'm a 16-year-old high school student, and my family situation has been complicated ever since my mom married my stepdad, Eddie, 2 years ago. My mom, who's 40, and Eddie, who's 42, have been together for 3 years now. My parents never got married. I was the result of a brief fling they had after college. They didn't think their relationship would last, but when my mom found out she was pregnant, she decided to keep me. My dad also wanted to be involved, so they agreed to share custody. Growing up, I alternated between my parents' homes every month. Despite their differences, they've always prioritized me and made sacrifices to stay close. Both passed up career opportunities so they could remain in the same city for my sake. When Eddie and my mom first started dating, he seemed friendly enough. He'd ask me questions about school and my hobbies, and I always responded politely. But after one visit, everything changed. He stopped talking to me completely, and I had no idea why. At first, I thought it was just a bad day or something, but when it continued, I asked my mom if I had done something wrong. She insisted that Eddie didn't have a problem with me, but was simply adjusting to the idea of me being around. Apparently, he'd never dated someone with a child before. Over time, I realized that not only Eddie but his 2 kids also ignored me. When Eddie and my mom got married a year later, they all moved into our house, and the situation became unbearable. Living with people who act like you're invisible is awful. I kept hoping things would improve, but years passed, and nothing changed. Last month, I was staying at my mom's house as usual. Things were the same as always. Eddie and his kids ignored me, and my mom acted like everything was normal. I was already in a bad place emotionally, having some arguments with my school friends, so their behavior made things even harder. One morning I woke up to find the house completely empty. I had no idea where everyone was. The night before, there had been no mention of anyone going anywhere. Panicking, I called my mom, and when she finally answered, she casually told me they'd gone on a trip for the week. She asked me to stay home and take care of the house while they were gone. I was furious. Not only had they left without telling me, but my mom expected me to act as a house sitter, without even asking if I was okay with it. I told her I didn't want to stay alone, but she dismissed me, saying I was overreacting. She hung up on me before I could even respond, and when I tried calling her back, she declined all my calls. Feeling hurt and abandoned, I decided to leave. I locked up the house, left the key under a potted plant, where my mom usually keeps it, and went to stay with my dad. When I got to his place, he was surprised to see me so early, since I wasn't supposed to return for another week. I ended up telling him everything, how Eddie and his kids had been treating me, how my mom refused to address it, and how they had left me alone without any warning. My dad listened patiently as I poured my heart out. I told him everything, how Eddie and his kids had ignored me for years, how my mom never stood up for me, and how she always justified Eddie's behavior with vague excuses. When I finished, my dad told me he was proud of me for sharing and assured me he'd handle everything. He didn't say much about my mom, but I could tell he was upset. For 5 days, I stayed at my dad's house, and my mom didn't try to contact me. I thought maybe she'd call to check on me or at least talk about what had happened. But instead, when she finally called, it was to yell at me. Apparently, while they were away, the house had been robbed, and she blamed me for leaving it unattended. I was stunned. I tried explaining that I had called her multiple times to let her know. I didn't feel comfortable staying there alone, but she kept yelling. She said I should have stayed no matter. How upset I was because she trusted me to keep the house safe. The fight escalated when Eddie joined the call, his first time addressing me in years, only to berate me and call me careless. Eddie's accusations were infuriating. He said things like he always knew I'd be the cause of their problems, which made no sense considering we never even spoke. At this point, I was done. I told my mom that I was hurt by how they had treated me all these years, and I was tired of being the scapegoat. She tried guilt-tripping me again, saying I should understand her sacrifices, but this time I wasn't willing to let it slide. A few days after the argument, I learned the truth about why Eddie had been treating me so poorly all these years. As it turned out, my mom had lied to him early in their relationship. When Eddie had asked if his sick mother could move in with us, my mom didn't want to agree. But instead of being honest, she blamed me. She told Eddie that I was a difficult child who hated her dating anyone, and that I'd driven away her previous boyfriends by being rude and manipulative. She even claimed I had insulted his family, referring to his sick mother as a burden and calling his kids evil goblins. None of this was true, but Eddie believed her. That's why he stopped speaking to me. He thought I was a disrespectful and troublemaking teenager. The truth came out because Eddie had been pressuring my mom to cut ties with me. When she refused, she had to confess that everything she'd told him about me was a lie. Eddie was furious. He apologized to me in an email, explaining that he'd trusted my mom blindly and had no reason to doubt her. He admitted he was wrong to treat me the way he did and asked for forgiveness. Meanwhile, Eddie moved out, and their marriage quickly began to unravel. My mom begged both of us for forgiveness, claiming she had lied to keep the peace. But the damage was done. Eddie filed for divorce, and I stopped talking to my mom altogether. It's been a few months since everything fell apart. My dad now has full custody of me, and I no longer have to stay with my mom if I don't want to. She has visitation rights, but I've chosen not to see her. After everything she put me through, I don't think I'll ever be ready to forgive her. Eddie has finalized the divorce, and my mom is struggling. She's been posting sad quotes on social media, which my cousins occasionally send me screenshots of, but I've blocked her everywhere. She made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. Life with my dad has been peaceful and stable. I've reconnected with my friends and started to feel like myself again. For the first time in years, I feel free from all the emotional turmoil my mom and Eddie caused. Moving forward, I'm focusing on myself and leaving the past behind. My mom even avoided dating for years because she wanted to focus on raising me. I know this because after marrying Eddie, she explained her choices to help me accept him. Eddie, however, hasn't made things easy. He's not openly hostile, but he's made it clear he doesn't like me. For reasons I can't understand. He's treated me like I don't exist for the past 3 years. This started abruptly during one of his early visits and hasn't stopped since. Even his 2 sons, a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, act the same way. My mom dismisses it, saying Eddie doesn't dislike me but isn't used to having me around. I try to tolerate it because I love my mom, but it's been incredibly hard. I tried to talk to my mom about Eddie's behavior, but she always brushed it off. She claimed he had his reasons, which were personal and not for me to know. She'd then guilt-trip me by reminding me of the sacrifices she'd made to raise me. Eventually, I stopped asking her for help. I didn't tell my dad either, because I didn't want to create drama or risk him seeking full custody. I just put up with it until I couldn't anymore.